CoshoctonTV.com will be airing a series on a man's journey who has been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Rick Phelps is in his 50s and he lives in West Lafayette, and he is going to be sharing his story on his terminal disease. His message of "While I Still Can" will give the viewers the patient side of the story, and he is encouraging caregivers, doctors, and also patients or even family members of people who have been affected with Alzheimer's to watch the video and gain more of an understanding on how it affects not only the patient but everyone in their lives. In his quest to learn more about early onset Alzheimer's, Rick created the group on Facebook, Memory People, and he is also coming out with a book called "While I Still Can." Here is Rick's story, and you are watching CoshoctonTV.com.
I want to tell people about my walk through Alzheimer's. Actually, it's early onset Alzheimer's disease is what I was diagnosed with. My memory problem started back about 8 years ago, and it started out with just little idiosyncrasies, yes, and it progressed. It just got worse, and so I went to our local doctor, who's been our family doctor for probably 30 years. He's an excellent doctor, but he attributed it to stress. I worked EMS for years, and he attributed it to the stress of the job and things like that. Well, I knew that wasn't it, because it wasn't a stressful job to me. I'd done it forever, and I loved the job. There were some good runs and bad runs, but still, you learn how to deal with that. So as this went on, I suppose I was at his office about 4 times, maybe, or 5, and finally I told my wife Phyllis June. I told her, I said, "Listen, something's got to change," because I knew something was wrong. I didn't know if I had a tumor or if the thought of Alzheimer's never crossed our mind.
We never thought about that, just because he's young.
Right.
I mean, at the time, yeah.
Right. He did a series of tests on me. He checked my B12. He did some blood work. I had an MRI, CAT scan, and everything, all that stuff come back. It was normal. It was good. So that was a good thing. Then he sent me down to a neurologist in Zanesville.
Well, he did that mini mental test too.
Yeah, I thought I said that. Yeah, well, he did a mini mental test on me, and then he sent me down to a neurologist that he knew real well in Zanesville, and I was more than happy to go because I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And so I don't know what date it was, don't matter, but we went down there, and we sat in the waiting room, and they had me fill out a bunch of paperwork, and I couldn't even remember what day I was born or what month it was. It was just because of the stress being there and seeing what was going to happen. So Phyllis had to fill that out for me. Well, then we went into the office, and the doctor came in. He's kind of a tall guy, silver hair, introduced himself, and he said, "Well, I have your records here." And he said, "What I want to do is give you a mini mental test." And I thought, oh no, not another one. So, but his was more in depth. I will give him that. And he asked me several questions, and then I think he's the one that had me tap on my leg every time he said the letter I or O or something.
A sentence, yeah.
Yeah, and that didn't work out too well. So he said from my medical records that have sent down from Coshocton, and from what he's observed, he said there's no doubt. He said it's mild cognitive impairment / early onset Alzheimer's disease, and what we're going to do is we're going to put you on what they call the Exelon patch, and you wear it 24 hours a day, and call me, and I'll see you again in 6 months. And that was it. And I remember walking out of the office, and Phyllis went to the restroom, and I just stood there. I thought, well, what does this mean? I've run squad for a long time, and I'm like, early onset Alzheimer's disease. It doesn't sound good. Well, I wasn't too happy with that, so I think it was the next day or 2 days later, I called back down. He told me he would take our calls before 8 o'clock in the morning.
Anybody that calls that wants to know something, yeah.
Yeah. So I called him about 8 something, and he answered the phone. He remembered who I was, and he said, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "Well, I'm just wondering what I'm supposed to do." He said, "Well, Rick, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, you don't want to see me for 6 months. I would think I'm on this patch. that's all you told me. He's like, well, it's the strongest medication that's out there, and there's nothing else you can do. He said, I don't know what you want me to do. And I'm like, well, okay, thanks. But I was in his office a total of 17 minutes and got a terminal diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And to me, that's just unheard. That's not unheard of. It's not acceptable. Yeah, that's the word.
He didn't say anything about you need to,
Right.
you know, go check into this for some research or get a hold of the Alzheimer's Association.
Right.
You know, I mean, we were basically shocked. I mean, because you know, you 57 years old and Alzheimer's, early onset. What's the difference between early onset? What's the difference, you know, and Alzheimer's? we just didn't know what to do. I mean, we were just lost. So he figured it out. He come home and he got on the internet and
Did the best I could researching it. And the trouble with this disease is, I found out real quick, it's a denial thing. I don't think I was in denial at all, because I was trying to push for some kind of diagnosis or some, you know, whatever it was.
an answer as to what was going
An answer,
on.
yeah. And it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Well, then I started asking around and researching the best I could, but I can't read anymore. I can read like anything over 2 or 3 paragraphs. I don't remember what's in the first paragraph because of the short-term memory thing. So it was very hard for me to research anything about this disease.
But we didn't even learn about this short-term memory
No.
thing, long-term memory. We didn't know anything
No.
about anything.
No.
And then that's when you found
I called
Alzheimer's and
800 number.
right.
And they was here within, I think, 2 days or 3 days. It was quick.
Yeah.
And lady come down, and she sat here at her kitchen table, dining room table, with our daughter and son-in-law. She said before they came, she said, you know, have family members there if you want, which we thought was a good idea, and write down questions prior to, and we did that, and we learned more. She was here about almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we learned more in that 3 hour that I've ever learned so far.
Right.
You know.
Well, she also said too much internet can be too much. You don't want to overdo that because, you know, it's just way too much information for you, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, but what we did learn was one of the hardest things with this disease is denial, and that's what I was getting at. A lot of friends of mine and even family members will say, "Well, you don't look sick." Well, I'm not sick. You know, I'm not sick at all. I'm healthy as a horse. I just can't remember anything. My short-term memory, and I didn't understand that. And what the deal is, I can remember things we did 30 years ago, or I did 20 years ago, whatever, like it was yesterday or whatever.
Stuff when you was a kid even.
Right, but I can't remember. I couldn't tell you what I had to eat yesterday or what I did yesterday because it's in my short-term memory. And the misconception about this disease is, a lot of people think, well, you forget it. Well, you don't forget it. It's gone. It's actually gone from your memory. It's not like, I give the example, if I walk back in our bedroom and look for my watch, a lot of times I get back in the bedroom and I don't remember what I'm back there for. And it's not like I'm going to remember in 5 or 10 minutes I don't have my watch, because it just goes.